Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Fireside chat. We are going to have a very interesting topic to discuss today. Our topic for the day is the promises and shortcomings of experimentation. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our panelists today. First, we have Josue Hernandez, President IAB Mexico, an experimentation and martech expert. He's also currently working at X. Next, we have Dr. Robson Tigre, an expert data scientist at Mercado Livre. Mercado Livre is one of the largest companies in South America. He's also an causality and experimentation expert. Welcome, Robson. Welcome, Joshua. Lastly, we have Ishan Goel, an experimentation expert, current founder of Thinking Bell, and former associate director of data science VWO. Welcome, Ishan.
Thank you.
Welcome to all of you. So before we kickstart this fireside chat, I'm going to read out some stats. HIPPO, acquired by Datadog. Statistic raises 100 million Series C at 1 billion valuation. VWO sold at $200 million. What is happening in the experimentation world? Is this a signal that heralds a new boom for the experimentation domain? What do you guys think? So this question is open to all of our three panelists. Maybe Joshua, if you would like to go first.
Perfect. So, well, I think that there is a boom in experimentation for sure, and it's going to be the standard in the next 2-3 different next years. The question is how it's going to be, because as you can see, most of the major platforms worldwide are already creating their own stack for experimentation. So most of the platforms are trying to, let's say, consolidate within their own platforms the experimentation stack. So, and this is something that we for sure experienced in the past with other, let's say, data-driven strategies or tech stacks. Yes, for instance, Google Analytics was one of these solutions 15 years ago. So I feel that it's going to be growing in the next years. And this is just because you have, not only because you have the interest of the platforms, but because the privacy-driven shift and demands that we are seeing in terms of legislation. So given that, I feel that we are going to have more experimentation. The question is why, and I would like to know the question is not why, the question is how, and when I would like to know the thoughts of the other panelists.
Yeah, Ishan, I think you might have an insider view, given that you worked with VWO. Why do you think the sudden boom is happening in the field of experimentation?
So what I think is personally, first thing is experimentation has existed in some form or the other for the past 2,500 years. I think what has been special about the past 20 years is that data collection got democratized on a very large scale. Like before that, collecting thousands and millions of data points was not easy. So for the past 20 years, I think we have seen a POC of what is possible with experimentation. And I think it is becoming more and more clear that products that are experimenting, they have much more understanding, much better understanding of what their users want, which features are working, what actually works and what does not work, and which metrics are the most important to go forward with. So I think now after that POC, and we have seen the growth of companies like Airbnb, like bookings.com, like Google, it's just now that that initial large scale POC is done. And now there is a wide scale adoption where more and more companies are going to be experimenting. That's my thoughts largely. Yeah.
I like the point that you made that, we have been experimenting for long, maybe from the era of, caveman times, Yeah, so we are experimentation machine, and because of all the experimentation, our civilization has progressed to the level that we are today. Great point. So, Robson, over to you. Why do you think this sudden impetus in the field of experimentation?
First, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I love the answers of the other panelists, and I'm not surprised by the statistics that you read. what I'm surprised is that it took so long for us to achieve this point, right? Because the core of experimentation is answering things like, hey, if we change this, how our situation as a company is going to change. This is basically what humans are interested from the beginning, as Ishan said. Uh, what I believe is that, following Ishan's point, is that now those companies have a lot of possibility to gather data because we are offering them data as users, and also the fast-paced dynamics of the company require them to say, hey, if we change this, are we going to be better off than if we change that other thing? So there are always those hypotheses competing and teams competing in a way that say, let's optimize what we are doing little by little, but continuously. And at the end of the day, we're going to have a huge optimization outcome as a result. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, great points again, Robson. Just building upon Joshua's point, right? Why has experimentation started to matter more? Do you guys think it has something to do with, the adjacent field, that is the privacy-proof marketing measurement field, that is suddenly gaining a lot of, fanfare as well? I mean, we have seen, a lot of market mix modeling companies getting acquired and having investment, interest in them. I mean, we ourselves have, got at least, 3 or 4 acquisition offers this year itself. So I think this is the, the gold rush period for the marketing measurement domain as a whole. But, coming back and, putting the focus back on experimentation, why has experimentation started to matter more? Of course, Ishan's point is that we have been doing it for so long, but in the last 5 years, things are galloping at a rapid pace. I mean, this question is open to all of you. Anybody would like to take it?
I personally think that with AI, there is going to be sort of two movements in place, and both are going to compete with each other. One is that we are getting agents to do a lot of how of things, like how things are implemented and how things are optimized. More and more AI is going to have a say in that, and AI agents will be doing things. But at the same time, as humans, we want to be in control of AI. And I think to be in control of AI, we need to monitor it through metrics and to act fast and to know which what is better than the other, which AI model to pick. I think experimentation itself will become inevitable. Like we will be experimenting with AI models to gain back the control that we are slowly losing out. That's my thoughts largely in the coming era.
Yeah.
I will add that
Yeah.
we cannot lose, the perspective that we work to advantage to the leadership in the companies. And most of the major companies worldwide have seen that if they keep using just, let's say, attribution, they are losing market. So that's a great reason to adopt MMMs, because most of the companies, especially the performance-based companies that only use attribution, saw how the growth cost in terms of advertising, and in the other hand, they were losing a market. So it doesn't make sense for them, and MMMs provide an answer or at least an hypothesis about how they can advance.
Great points. Robson, you
So
have.
Yeah. Those are great points, but I believe that the tool is there. Like we can experiment with this bunch of data. And there's also a self-centric philosophy in teams to say, hey, I want to show to my stakeholders that the decisions I'm making are bringing value to the company. So it happened to me, say, can you design an experiment? It's not, can you design an experiment to test this hypothesis? It's like, can you design an experiment to show that our decision is generating revenue? So I think this self-centric motives of testing hypotheses are also responsible for making people experiment. And although the motivation is not a beautiful one, like the outcome is helping us as an ecosystem to build on experimentation. And now on the topic of MMMs, and also follow Ishan's point, MMMs exist for I don't know exactly how many years, but they are there.
Yeah. Yeah,
they're popular now, but they like Nielsen used to do those
exactly.
those calibrations of MMMs some decades ago. And I also believe that there is a self-centric motive. Like marketing teams get a lot of money. There is this saying that, okay, marketing is great. Like half of my money has a return when I invest, but I don't know which half. And MMMs are way out for this saying, because they provide a direction. As much as there are some people who believe more or less on MMMs, it's better than doing based on 100% intuition. So yeah.
Great point. So yeah, so we have established that there's a lot of demand for experimentations, and we ourselves get a lot of yeah, questions from prospective clients. And the question normally is like, okay, we want to get started with experimentation, but what are the top 3 things that you would want us to tick off first so that we are ready to do experiments? So what are the top 3 things that you would want any company to tick off first so that they are experimentation ready? Ishan, you can go first.
Yeah. So firstly, I would like to thank Robson for this amazing point on proving our things. That's quite great. So the 3 things that I feel that need to be checked off and in that order, I think. First, I think is the culture, because I've realized a lot of times as humans, we use data to confirm our points, not to learn more a lot of times. And there are a lot of cultural issues. And if those cultural issues are first not fixed, if we are not willing to learn from data, then experimentation ends up being a puppet where it is used in case it confirms our beliefs and it is pushed aside when it does not confirm our beliefs. And that come from the senior leadership. So if the senior leadership is really aligned to learn and to sort of contradict their own selves, only then experimentation should be implemented. So the first thing is culture. The second thing I think is data, because if you do not have reliable sources of data, if your data is messed up, then no matter what you build on it, you will not be able to trust it. And the third thing I think is some sort of an understanding of which metrics matter to you. Like it cannot be a very basic understanding that revenue matters to me or maybe ARR matters to me. You need to boil it down to some leading metrics that indicate that your product is working. And from there on, only can you start to inculcate some form of experimentation in the company. So, yeah, these are my 3 things.
Great points. Joshua, you can go next.
Well, I think Ishan already said everything, but I will say that as a mirror of that, if you want to have high quality, clean data, you need to have a data infrastructure for sure to process and to manage and store that data. Of course, I mean, executive buy-in for me is the most important, is even beyond the culture, and the buy-in to fail. Because most of the time, as Robson said already, the people wants to create experiments just to say that they are right. but the good thing about experimentation is that you fail, because if not, you are not experimenting well. But yeah, I will add one, let's say, one additional ingredient. That is, I feel that if you want to create let's say, experimentation culture, at the same way that I don't know, train your company for public speaking, for example, you should train your teams, your company in terms of statistics. You don't need to be an expert on statistics, but you need to know what is a Pareto. You need to know what is a distribution. And I feel that if you want to have an experimentation culture, you should provide statistical fundamentals to your company. So the people start to know how to isolate an hypothesis and so on.
Great points, Joshua. Robson, you have anything to add to that?
Those were pretty complete answers. I like the point of Josue of data literacy is also aligned with culture. So not to repeat them, I'm going to talk about something that is related to what Josue mentioned. Building hypotheses. We talked about this, Venkat, in our podcast, and you know that I'm really fond of people having a clear sense of why. Okay, you want to train MMMs, you want to run experiments, but why? What's the end game? What are you going to do with those results? Is anything going to change? Like as a person that follows a technical track, I'm always asking stakeholders, is my answer going to change what you're going to do afterwards? Or am I going to work here on a project for a couple of weeks and you're going to just to get these results? And if they confirm your belief, you're going to move ahead. If they not, so having a clear sense of why, I also think that understanding what those tools are capable of and the type of questions they're able to answer. Probably you guys saw Ron Kohavi sharing a paper about the Google experiments being interpreted as randomized experiments, but they were not randomized experiments. So like heads of marketing are going to assume they are randomized, but they are not. The conclusions are going to drive decisions to a different way. And so having a clear sense of what those tools are doing, and also knowing what is under the hood, right? I had previous experiences with marketing analytics vendors that they didn't want to open up what they were doing. And I mean, okay, your algorithm may be like proprietary, and it makes sense to me that you are not sharing everything, but we need to know what is going on if we are supposed to believe on those. So as a head of marketing, as a person in a marketing analytics team, please don't blindly believe everything that people tell you. Even is it Google or Meta or a third-party vendor? Question it. That's what I would like people to do.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, Robson. Robson and Joshua, you have a lot of experience with both MMM and experimentation. One of the popular questions that we get from prospective clients is that can we establish some kind of synergy between MMM and experimentation? So what we normally tell them is that, okay, you build your MMM first, and then you can use those results to inform your experimentation. And of course, there are budgetary constraints, right? You can't keep doing MMM, every week, every month. You can technically do it, but because of budgetary reasons, people don't do it. So you kind of get into a situation where you have radio silence, but you want to fill that radio silence by doing experimentation and having a constant signal. What do you think can be done? How experimentation and MM can come together and give you a synergistic effect. Joshua, you can go first.
Well, I know that everyone here is an expert, so I don't want to double down, on what experimentation provides to the MMM, but of course, the main thing is that it provides casual priors to refine the MMM for sure. But I would like to, I like to use an analogy. The MMM is like the map. You are going to do a new trip, and the map is a MMM. But the experimentations and the different experiments are the GPS. So you can have the best map ever, but imagine, in India or Mexico or Sao Paulo, it doesn't matter, but crazy cities, in all those countries. Imagine that you have a beautiful map, but you don't use a GPS every day when you want to go to point A to point B. It's going to be crazy, even if you have the best map ever. So that's my analogy. Of course, you need to have the map, because if you don't have the map, you don't know where you go. But in the other hand, you need the GPS to find the best route every day.
That's an excellent analogy. So GPS kind of, tells you whether you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Robson, you can go next.
Well, I love this analogy, and I'm going to steal it when I need to explain. Of course, if I remember, I'm going to give credits. But agreed, completely agreed. I know that some MMM experts may not agree with me, but I believe that it's a loop. It's not like one tool helps the other and that's it. The other also helps the first one. I believe that MMMs may help you create hypotheses that you can test with experimentation. For instance, my own channel's communication is not performing as my prior belief. So let me see in a tactical level whether it's a question of wording, copy, the audience that I'm approaching. But the other way, as also I mentioned, works as well. So there are some MMM approaches that allow me to say, hey, the ground truth obtained through experimentation says that the parameter should be between those two values. So I'm going to impose this restriction in the optimization of the MMM. So the MMM don't say that my budget allocation should exceed this band. So I think those two things complement each other, like help each other out, in the terms that one is an eagle eye view and the other one is like a magnifying glass view. And, and, and I know also that people are really passionate about each two and they might disagree with me. I'm open to being educated, just connect on LinkedIn and share materials. I'm always reading, for instance, Venkat's materials on MMM, on different. So
Yeah, great point, Saul. Uh, I know Joshua talked about, the statistical knowledge that one needs to have to appreciate experimentation or to do the experiments correctly. Ishan, this is a topic that is close to both of our hearts. We have been evangelizing on, statistics and data science. How important do you think, knowing statistics is to do experimentation right?
I'm so glad you asked this. This is a very interesting question to me as well. I personally feel that statistics can be seen from two lenses. One is the basic building blocks, the equations, the algorithms that sit behind the numbers that you finally get. I think people are intimidated by that, and very rightly, it's not really needed for experimentation. You don't need to know how to calculate the p-value, how to probably integrate to distributions and stuff. That's not the important part, but that can always come in a library or in a tool or whatever, or maybe a team of data scientists can implement it for your company. But I think what is really required if you are to experiment, or I think even for MMM, I think it's an intuitive understanding of randomness. And essentially, what I mean is that a lot of signals that we see in the world, a lot of patterns that we see in the world, a lot of them is noise. And we need to be able to separate out the noise from the signal. And that's why I think statistical applicability is required. Like, for instance, if you are seeing a conversion rate go up, but suddenly someone tells you that if you're seeing revenue per visitor go up, and suddenly someone tells you that there was an outlier in the variation, then you should know that the outlier itself might not replicate in production. So you need to be able to know what to do in which scenario, where can noise come in from. If say if someone has found a pattern in data after cutting through a lot of segments, after doing a lot of hocus pocus, then it is very likely that it was just a false pattern that came out of chance because you tortured data quite a lot. So I think those aspects of statistics are very important to understand on how randomness essentially makes us see a lot of patterns when there are not there. That's my larger 2 cents.
Yeah, that was a wonderful point. Just last week, I was with a prospective client. The room was filled with CMO and as well as the chief statistical officer. So the chief statistical officer told me that what, Venkat, whatever you post on LinkedIn, those are so spot on, statistically factual, correct, and everything. But let me tell you one thing, that what, the marketers don't care. And it really gives me some kind of like a sinking feeling, honestly. I have a 1-year-old son, and he gets excited by anything that moves, colorful, and he told me that marketers, in some way are like that. They get moved by jazzy things, really beautiful UI. The question about the statistical robustness, it's more like an afterthought, right? I have seen this happen in the field of MM. People readily, gulp up anything that's very jazzy, looking good, but they don't question whether the model is giving you the right results or not. So my question to all of you is, I feel sometimes we are over science-ifying marketing. Do you guys feel that sometimes we are over science-ifying marketing? Anybody who wants to go first? Joshua?
Well, I think Robson needs to start the next one because if not, it's going to be at the end always. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we are over science-fying the marketing. At the end, the science clarify the impact, and remove the noise from the signal. The problem is if we let's say, express our technical method to the C-level. That should be the problem. I mean, you cannot go to a C-level meeting talking about difference on difference. You cannot talk about that. You cannot talk about power of an experiment and things like that. If we want to be successful in terms of establish MMMs and experimentation as a, the ground through for marketing, we need to productivize, let's say, our work. And maybe we need to create a score from 0 to 100 to say how, I mean, you cannot talk about, how, if you can trust in an experiment or not, given 10 different metrics. You need to say, hey, from 0 to 100, we can trust 60%, for example. But you cannot go in too many details. But this is a problem of communication, not of the method itself. So just go back to on time and remember, let's say, attribution or Google Analytics. Of course, you have a lot of issues depending of the attribution model that you are using, last click, time decay, or whatever. But you don't talk about that. You say, hey, the ROI of this investment is 2x, 3x, whatever. So I think that the problem that we are having right now is that there is not a standard of how to validate an MMM, and we are going in too many details, and we talk against each other all the time that we have. So what the C-level is hearing from us is noise, because one guy say one thing, the another say one thing, and no one trusting each other. So we need to, let's say, agree on disagree, but talk that MMM is the standard.
Great points, Joshua. Robson, do you have anything to add there?
First, thank you, Josue, for pointing out that I should be first next round. I really appreciate being
It's
last
coming up.
one because
It's coming up.
I get all the answers and then I say, okay, do I have something else to add? I completely agree with his answer. We should be like, I don't know if you guys watched this Goofy from Disney, and there is an episode called Motor Mania in which Goofy is a really nice guy, but once he enters the car, he becomes a completely different person. We should be like this. We should be like scientists when we are doing analysis, and when we are going to present to stakeholders, we should be a person that translates what we did and presents the insights. Like many of them are going to believe you because have a technical background and so on. And if they don't, they question you. It's a better way to get buy-in than trying to say, hey, let me convince you with all this rocket science. And people are just going to say, hey, well, it doesn't make any sense. And this guy should learn a bit on how to sell what he's doing. So 100% of Josue teams and his answer.
Yeah, great points, Robson. So, addressing Joshua's complaint, we are going to start off with this question with you, Robson. So do you think experiments will eventually become causal experiments?
Well, I don't know if you're asking whether business experiments will become part of causal inference or if experiments will completely replace other causal methods.
Well, to better frame it, I would say that, experiments normally say that, hey, the CTR is 5% and et cetera, but nobody asks the question, what resulted in that, the what and why is never asked. Now we have, techniques like, difference in differences, all the other causal methods technique that is coming up. Do you think somewhere, the experimentation that we do will eventually, transition into a causal experiment, like a level up?
I believe there is a lot of room for us to translate this result. Okay, we implemented a feature in this app or whatever, and like conversion rate increased by 5%. Okay, we assume that there is a direct link from the feature to the conversion rate, but I understand that there's not much question about why did this happen or what are the channels, what are the mediators and so on. It's not that explored. If you go for an experimentation platform, you are never going to see part for you to investigate what behavior or what are the mechanisms that led from one to another. Um, Other areas such as computer science, for instance, they study a lot this path between one thing and the other. But I think we are far from that, especially in businesses. And I don't think that businesses really care for those uh, minor optimizations on conversion rate, what is really causing this effect. I don't know if in the future we are going to see people studying this from a behavioral framework, but in the short run, I don't see it happen.
Yeah, those are some interesting points, Robson. Coming back to you, Joshua, now that I have addressed your complaint, uh, you know, uh, how can experimentation keep up with, the new forms of measurement? When I say new forms of measurement, there are a lot of new measurements like the attention metrics. There are companies like Lumen and Adelaide, they are coming up with technologies, where they can track eyeball movement and tell you, whether somebody's interested or not, and so on and so forth. But how can experimentation evolve to kind of like validate them and help them?
Well, I think this is that comes from philosophy of science. I mean, I am a follower of Popper, so I feel that the science is based of conjectures and refutations. So I don't feel that it's like, oh, how I keep up with these new things. It's like, okay, that could be, because it's a possibility, that could be a best way to explain the reality. Because the MMM is not the ultimate answer to anything. I mean, at the end, it's a method. So every time that something came up, I feel I mean, I take a lot of interest on this new thing, but because it could be, it could provide better answers to the question that we have, because you always need to, think that you don't have the ultimate answer to your questions. By the way, I don't know if you have read the last report from McKinsey. McKinsey released 5 days ago incredible monograph around attention. It's around 40 pages. So I recommend to you to have a look to this paper. I will put in the chat.
Sure. Great. Ishan, what are your comments on this? How can experimentation keep up with, the modern measurement techniques, namely, let's say, attention metrics? How should experimentation evolve? I know the traditional, way of doing experiments is statistical in nature. Perhaps those are not enough to, measure these new age measurement. What do you think?
Can you by attention metrics, you mean these? What can you just elaborate a bit? What you exactly mean by attention metrics?
So I mean, I'm not an expert in what these companies do, but from what I have studied and read, it's like they have come up with technologies where, I think somebody has already posted.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's just Joshua. So I think just by your, eyeball movement, somebody can tell you whether you're interested, in a particular ad or not, for how long you have been on the website and stuff like that. So those are basically your attention metrics. I may be summarizing it wrong. We did have, a few people from Adelaide in our experimentation course today. I don't know whether they are here today, but yeah, that's my understanding. So I hope that kind of clarified you.
So yeah,
Adding to
that's
this,
yeah,
Joshua.
Yeah, please, Josue.
no, just adding to this, sorry, Ishan, just adding to this, at the end, we are modeling investments, but maybe that impressions on TV, no one is seeing that those impressions. So for that reason, attention is the new wave of measurement, because you don't only need to ensure that you make the impression or deliver the impression, but someone is seeing that impression. That's it, the attention metrics.
That's a very good description, and this is actually a new thing for me as well. I personally think that for the form of metrics, attention must be a very interesting advancement over like these basic hovers and clicks that we are looking at. But I think there are there is a core distinction that we need to make here. The firstly is the interventional thing. Like I think causality can be studied on two levels. One is where you are intervening with a treatment, and the other is observational, on where you are not intervening into how the website looks or something, but you are just observing how people are behaving in a set ecosystem and stuff. So I personally think experimentation is strictly in the range of where you are intervening and randomly showing something to someone. So experimentation needs to probably progress in that area only. I think for that also attention metrics can be useful. This other side, which is observational, where you are just observing your users, how they are behaving, what they are doing on your website and stuff. I think that is dependent on the development of causal inference, which has picked up in the last 5 years, but I'm not able to comment and say how quickly will this field of causal inference actually expand. But if it does, yeah, it'll be very exciting to see if you can just observe your customers and tell where they are focusing on, what probably motivates them and what causes them to act. It'll be an interesting development.
Good point. So, I mean, this is a question to all of you. Perhaps you know about this Goodhart's law. It says that, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a, good measure, right? Yet, but still we have, CTR, conversion rate and all that for many years. And, as Robson said, sometimes what happens is you focus on these particular objectives, but yes, lose track of the business question that you're trying to answer. How can one, overcome this particular phenomena where a company sets a particular measure as a target, but then they focus too much on that particular measure that it ceases to be a good measure? I think we'll let Robson go first this time. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that the question you made me last time, the one that Josue and Ishan answered, and this one are strongly related in the sense that there is something in the middle between the intervention and the conversion. There is something there, right? That I call mechanisms or mediator. This could be eye movement. This could be the time spent looking at the. Again, I don't see this happening in the short run because of, well, we like most of MMM is because of privacy and what happened. So it would be unusual that apps are let to track our eye movements for us to use it as a mediator. But there's always going to be a metric. We just need to look at the final metrics, I believe. So, okay, I work at Mercado Livre now. What should be the final metrics? Revenue, I believe, one of them. Client satisfaction, we care a lot about that. So there's a concept that Ronco Harvey mentioned. It's not his. I believe it's called the overall evaluation criterion. Like you get a sense of a lot of things that are important, but they are at the end. Like revenue is a goal for the company, of course. We want to reduce churn. We don't want people to leave us for our competitors, but we also want people to buy while being satisfied with purchasing with us. So, but look that there's no click-through rate. There's no time spent in the website or the app. For instance, if you make a really confusing app, it's really hard for you to complain. It's really hard for you to buy. But people still need to go there. You're going to see this intermediary KPI super high, but people are dissatisfied with it. So at the end of the day, I would keep track. I would keep my eyes focused on those final KPIs, but also being thoughtful that revenue should not be the only goal because you can be a bad business and still achieve a high revenue rate. So our core values is focus on the client, is growing, is make people being able to access the banking system, and otherwise they wouldn't be. So yeah, well, I think it's a really diffuse answer, but at the end of the day, is look at why you were here, which we talked about in the previous questions. What's your sense of why and what you want to achieve? In the middle of the way, a lot of things are going to happen. Some of them are just going to be a distraction that can confuse you, such as a huge click-through rate that could lead to a worsened revenue, for instance.
Those were insightful points, Robson. Ishan, how can we prevent these measures from becoming gamed? Just if you can build up on what Robson said.
So I think, so firstly, I would like to bring in Robert McNamara here because I think it's a very repeated fallacy that has been repeated in statistics and anyone who starts dealing with numbers. I think metrics are at the very core, they are reductionists. They reduce a complex phenomena into something as a one-dimensional number. And one needs to realize that something as complex as a business cannot be entirely reduced to one metric. Why I want to talk about McNamara's fallacy here is that there is this story that always comes up. Robert McNamara was the defense secretary of the US during the Vietnam War, and he reduced the entire war to one metric, which is the number of enemy soldiers dead. And he was constantly at it to optimize it. And US lost the war. So I think we all need to keep McNamara fallacy in mind. I think too many metrics also, if you create a dashboard of 20 metrics, it's not going to be valuable because sometimes something or the other will always be going up and down. But I think what we really need to focus upon is 3 to 4, maybe 5 metrics that are orthogonal in nature. What I mean by orthogonal is that they should give you the wider picture or the multidimensional picture so that you know that one thing, if it is not being captured in conversion rate, it will show up maybe in engagement or maybe in revenue. So what I suggest is that one needs to have 3 to 4 metrics, and when you are setting up an experiment, you should think about how can you game the primary metric and add guardrail metrics accordingly. So if there is conversion rate, then maybe you should protect down funnel metrics from being like gamed. Like it should not be that conversion rate is going up, but revenue is going down. So I think the more we start to think of 2 or 3 metric combinations, the more we are dealing better with gaming of these metrics. So yeah, I hope my answer made sense.
Yeah, I just hope Trump is not listening to our fireside chat because he might levy a 10% more tariffs, given that you spoke something bad about US right now. But
Okay.
yeah. Anyways, switching gears, let's talk about Gen AI, right? Gen AI is now able to write copies. It's able to create creatives. People are using it to, create Ghibli photos and whatnot, right? Uh, do you think because of all this, the role of experimenter will kind of get curtailed? Do you think in the future Gen AI will be able to hypothesize, create experiments for you, and humans will be sidelined, or do you think humans will still be required, at least in a more strategic roles? The question is first to Joshua, and then we'll go around the room. Yeah.
Well, I feel that it's going to happen in everything in the daily basis, let's say, and in every job that you have, that you are going to be more out of the loop regarding operations, and you are going to be more on strategic. I feel that you can use already as a copilot, to refine your hypothesis, to better wording your hypothesis, and so on. And in the future, even maybe you can upload, let's say, a data set, and it can provide some hypotheses around what you should experimentate to validate some hypotheses. Here, the competitive advantage should be the context, because the data set that doesn't have context. So our role should be a framer. You need to frame where you are, and how is your situation. Come back to the analogy of the GPS. We all know that you can use the GPS to go faster from one point to another, but maybe you go from a very dangerous neighborhood in the middle. And you don't want to go through there. So the context is going to be the advantage of our teams in the future. We are going to be more strategic, and we are going to be later in. I mean, you are going to be able to upload a data set, and the Gen AI is going to evaluate 100 experiments in terms of p-values, power, and blah blah blah. And I don't want to do that, by the way. I want a machine to do that for me. I want to provide hypotheses. I want to provide a business advantage.
Understood. Yeah, so tough days ahead, Ishan, for both of us, if GenAI is going to interpret all the statistics. Robson, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think GenAI is going to reduce the, importance of an experimenter, or, the role of experimenter will still remain?
Okay. First of all, every podcast I take part asks about Gen AI, and to be completely honest, I have no idea. I believe nobody here has any idea. We're just saying, oh well, I believe that. But there's this quote of Judea Pearl. I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, but that data is profoundly dumb. It's aligned with what Josue told us, that well, the data doesn't contain context. And 80% of my job is talking to people to learn where is the data about their business part in the company that has more than 50,000 employees, and joining these separate parts of data in a single table and cleaning it and making sense out of it and applying the context that I have, and also knowing from Julia Pearl that statistics can't solve causal problems alone. You need to model it somehow. Even if your model is not a structural model, it's just a belief and an intuition that you put in a regression, you still have to model it. So, well, once AI can do this, then I'm out of my job and it. But I believe there is a long time ahead of us in that sense, because people in the business, they don't know how to formulate the question. So how are they going to ask the AI to do this? When we achieve
That's a great point.
the idea that Josue said, okay, everybody should have data literacy and be able to formulate important hypotheses to the business. At this day, then I'm going to be unemployed. So let's hope it takes a lot of time for Gen AI to replace us, but let's hope that it takes just a short time for people to be literate on data and analytics.
Ishan, what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are really that going forward, as Gen AI starts to do more and more things, and I don't know humans which direction they'll take, but there can be two directions. Either we become passive and we let it do what it wants to do, and we just trust it to do the right thing. But I think humans are they're more inquisitive. They are going to understand and want to understand even AI. How is it working and why is it taking the decisions that it is taking? So I personally think that it is always like first you achieve intelligence and then you debug back to understand that intelligence. So I personally think that the task of at least experimenters should increase at understanding what AI is doing. And even like we have seen in the past 20 years that companies who are experimenting, they are gaining much more benefit. I think people who will be experimenting with their own AIs will have much more control over the outcomes of their AI. And people who are not experimenting, they'll be losing out control from of the outcome of the AI. So I think personally, experimentation is not entirely doomed, but like only future will tell, as Robson said. We are all guessing.
Yeah, sticking on the topic of GenAI, right? I don't know whether you have seen the recent reports that the search traffic on Google has kind of dwindled in many years. And there are many people saying that, this GenAI tools like OpenAI, Perplexity is coming for Google's lunch. And also some people are commenting that, hey, you know what? The first touch attribution is happening to Google, but after that, nobody knows, how the purchase is made. People are going to maybe, chat GPT and saying that I want this particular product, or going to Perplexity to, ask for a particular Nike shoe or something like that. So it has kind of become like a black hole where, people are coming to the Google first, but then after that, nobody knows what's happening. What could be the repercussion, of this Gen AI tools on, CPM, bidding strategies, etc.? And do you think, Google really losing out on this? I think we can go first with Joshua again, just because it's clockwise for me here. Yeah.
My answer should be part of the last answer. That is, no one knows what is happening for sure. But in the other hand, my answer should be no worries. The Gen AI companies is going to solve for you, because there is a lot of money over the table. It was the same with social media. I mean, we are all old enough here to remember the Web 2.0 era, the social media start. It was a lot of confusion on that moment. But 1 year later, all the social media companies already solve for you how to measure and how to manage their own companies in terms of advertising, because there is a lot of money on the table. I mean, Robson works on Mercado Livre. No one knows how to manage retail media 3 years ago, and now we have more clarity. Why? Because retailers wants to have more part of the share of investment. So there are going to be a lot of investment, and I am sure that all of the, let's say, Gen AI companies are going to provide advertising solutions in the future. And our let's say mission should be to I don't remember who was the one who said, don't believe the seller, we need to be those people that double check those metrics against business outcomes.
Mhm. Great. So you do think that, this Gen AI companies will start advertising in their portal, but I don't know what the repercussion of that would be, because, people definitely come to this tools to just get answers and not to get, bombarded by advertising. But who knows, because these companies cannot sustain just being a search engine, right? Robson, what's your view? Do you think these companies are coming for Google's lunch? Do you think this will impact the CPMs, the bidding strategies?
This is a whole new game, but well, we saw that, for instance, eBay owned Mercado Livre, a part of Mercado Livre, and today Mercado Livre is valued more than eBay. We saw, for instance, Yahoo was taken by Google and so on, but Google has 20 years of data of users' behavior and searches and so on. So it could be an eBay or Yahoo if it doesn't do anything new, but it has the advantage right now also to train models to offer people what they need when they go to Gemini and so on. So yeah, again, I have no idea what they're going to do, but 2 years from now, I couldn't imagine that I would subscribe to a stream and get ads in the middle. Like I'm watching a movie and they say, boom, here's an ad for that supermarket. It could be that next week, when you go search for something on OpenAI or on Gemini, they're going to do the same thing. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, don't give Netflix some ideas, Robson. I love my movies without ads. Yeah. Ishan, what do you think?
For one thing that I think is for the customer, it is going to be better in any case, like flipping through multiple pages, I think, because ChatGPT or LLMs, essentially, I'm saying who implements them is a different question, but LLMs will be able to match products with people who are going to buy much better. So I think that ways things are going to improve for the customers. On the front that whether these companies will eat Google's lunch or not, I feel that LLMs will definitely overpower traditional search methods, and definitely the market will also start shaping in that direction to optimize for LLMs. But again, as Robson said, even Google can implement its own LLM. So who is going to win in that better LLM race is something that we'll see. But I certainly feel that LLMs will dominate marketing for that method. Yeah.
Great. So now we have come to our last question. So now I'll start with Robson. Can you state one experimental success and one experimental failure, and what did you learn from each one of them? I'll go around the room and ask everyone, but you can go first, Robson. It could be you don't have to tell the company name, but just tell us what the experiment was. What did you do? Did it succeed? If it's a success, you can tell the company name. If it's a failure, you can hide it.
Okay. I'm proud of the failures and success because you get to learn something from the failures too. But I think a single experience has the two sides of the coin. Once I had to create hypotheses from observational data on what would be good remedies or interventions to give to people that suffered a bad experience. For instance, Venkat purchases something, it was supposed to arrive tomorrow and it took like 5 days. It's a bad experience. How can we aid Venkat so he doesn't get mad and give up buying with us. But the thing is that you have a story and you don't have the intervention. So how are you going to get a sense of, okay, what are bad experiences that hurt the user and how I could aid this person to avoid churn, for instance. So, well, this project is called Low Value Actions. We are trying to design experiences to say, hey, bad things happen and it's your fault. What can I do for you? Take this voucher or get an apology or get 20% discount in the next purchase and those kinds of things. And I think that the failure here was not being able to look at the why of the project. Again, I'm talking about the why. Why are we doing this? Not because we don't want to get extra revenue, but because we are willing to pay, like from our pockets, for you not to go away. Of course, there is a revenue in the question when you look to the lifetime value of the client and you don't want to churn. It's not that the company is noble and wants you to stay just for goodwill. Uh, but the failure was that it took several months for me to derive hypotheses from the data when we should derive hypotheses from the causal thinking of, well, how much are we have available to spend on those people, and why do we want these people to stay at the end of the day, and what are the bad experiences that should never happen here, and we are ashamed that they happen, and we are willing to pay for the person as an apology. And the success there was that at the end of the day, with the help of the business, and I say this because I'm used to think from a statistical perspective, and in the past year and a half, I learned a lot about thinking as a business person, as a bit like an executive. I learned on how to create the hypothesis, test those hypotheses, get buy-in, and now the project is being rolled out to not as a policy, a final policy, but as an experiment to the other countries of Latin America. And hopefully, at the end of the day, it becomes a policy. And when something happens to my wife that buys a lot from Mercado Livre and she gets like an apology or a discount, I can say, hey, I helped developing this product that is implemented there.
Yeah, your wife will be definitely happy. Yeah, great. Really great examples, Robson. Thanks for sharing them. Ishan, yeah, what are your experiences? Yeah.
I have not run A/B tests in the traditional sense of marketing or feature development, but I would want to say one thing that after building the stats engine at VW, and we really hope that we could finally get to a state where stats will be able to automatically take a decision in every context that will add all the factors and will have SRMs and everything so that you given all the signals, there can be one module that tells you that, okay, go ahead and deploy this change or don't deploy this change. After going through all the research and implementing the reports and stuff, I think we learned a lot, but what we realized was that stats is very contextual. So that was a larger experiment. I realized that it is not something that can be reduced to a decision ever. It is something that only the client can, probably the experimenter can put in context and take a decision. So that was a larger experiment that we led through, but it did not work out, but there were a lot of learnings and failure as well. Yeah.
Great. Joshua, I'm sure your career spans longer than ours, and you must have a lot of experiences of both the success and failures. So if you can cite few of them and your learnings, that would be great.
What I have is a lot of experience in failures. So, well, that I always like to talk about my experience in a major failure, let's say, because it's very counterintuitive, and and I would like to hear other opinions regarding that. If others have a contrarian opinion about what I'm going to talk, I am more than happy to have a one-on-one with with him or her, because I was like 2 years. Do experimentations, or most of the time live test with different techniques, from brand leaf to geo leaf and so on, regarding personalization at the scale. all the people, I mean, if you read all the corporate literature in the last, let's say, 20 years, you should have better results with personalization than without personalization. My learnings from more than 20 experiments is personalization at the scale doesn't work. When you try to do branding campaigns for a massive brand, personalization at the scale doesn't work. And it was a failure because we repeat and repeat different tests all the time to demonstrate that personalization at the scale works and personalization is better than non-personalization. And what we learned was that personalization at the scale doesn't work. At least in the, I mean, I want to be in the conditions that we run those experiments, let's say. But with the conditions that we run the experiments, this personalization doesn't work. When you want to create like an idea in the minds, not of 100, but 10 millions, personalization at the scale doesn't work. It works better when you provide the same message to all. And we have created like, not only, I mean, we deep dive on that with not only different creative, but different ways to optimize the bidding in the campaigns and so on. Because I mean, not all the hypotheses, but we run a lot of experiments. So that should be the biggest failure because we spent like, I don't know, 2 years trying to demonstrate personalization at the scale. At the end, the answer was no. And in terms of the good news regarding that is just because the amount of tests that we did trying to demonstrate something that if it was wrong, we can create Monte Carlo simulations. So you can, I mean, with the library of experiments, we enable practitioners create alternative setup of campaigns and try to be more efficient every time that so you provide the let's say the final outcome that you want to have, and regarding and given the results in the library, you can run alternative setups and choose what is the better for the final outcome that you want. But that was an afterward results.
Again, a really insightful example, Joshua. So I have come to the end of my questions. So this was really insightful. Thanks, Joshua. Thanks, Robson. Thanks, Ishan. Such insightful answers. So now I'll pass on the baton to my audience. I believe they have some questions to ask. So, I mean, just a small instruction to audience. Please ask your question and please also state your name and whom you're asking these questions to. Yeah, over to you guys. Yeah, who is going first? Yeah. Okay, I think we have a question from Anna. Yeah, please go ahead, Anna. Ask your question.
Hi, everyone. Everyone knows that market teams think that they are doing the best to do the experimentation. What do you guys believe that is the basics well done? And if you guys already had an experience on starting this culture of experimentation in a new team, and if you guys has any piece of advice on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. I believe your question is to everybody, so we'll just follow the same procedure, but this time we'll go to Robson first. Yeah.
I think that Josue's intervention worked, that I'm getting picked for first.
Yeah, causation. Yeah.
Culture of experiment. Fortunately, the company I work in now already has its own platform for experimentation. There's a team dedicated to it. I don't need to make a lot of effort in this sense. In the past, I worked in a company where experiments were kind of manually implemented. You had to go to pick the users and tell these users to the communications team. They would send messages and so on. I believe there is no way to do this bottoms up, right? So you have to team up with stakeholders, people that are already close to the C-level, for them to push. Otherwise, you're just going to get tired. And the basics, well done. For me, I mean, there are a lot of ways to do experiment, but they depart from a single way. Randomize groups, implement something to one group and not to the other, wait, compare them at the end. This is the basics well done, but be sure that you do a power calculation to have enough power for your experiments, because, well, you could do the basics, getting 10 people in each group, and at the end of the day, you do this 100 times and you are not going to get a conclusion. So if you're going to implement the rice and beans, as we say in Brazil, follow this, that, okay, power calculation, a decent implementation, there's no interference or interaction between those two groups. Those are the classic requirements for you to get causal identification at the end of the day. I hope I have answered the points better. At least those are the ones I remember.
Yeah, thanks, Robson. Ishan, do you have any points to add?
So if I understand the question correctly, Anna is asking that if we go into a new team, how do we start building the culture of experimentation, right?
Yes, because people here see that experimentation is something that needs to be done, but they think that they are doing their best, but there is still a lot to be improved in a sense of applying statistics correctly.
Interesting. So for the purpose of building the culture and getting organizational buy-in and convincing people, I would like to recommend you one book by Rommel Santiago that I recently had the chance to read. It is called Prove It or Lose It, and I think Rommel has done an excellent job in basically, again, talking about how to get stakeholders, how to align the objective of your experiments with stakeholders. Then it talks about how to get enough power and get some quick wins early in the experimentation team. So I would strongly recommend that book. That should answer your query about building the
Can you
culture.
repeat the name, please, of the book?
Prove It or Lose It by Rommel Santiago. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can type it out in the chat, Ishan,
Yeah,
and yeah,
definitely.
that would be great. Thanks, Ishan. Yeah, Joshua, yeah, over to you.
I will add, Anna, just one thing. Best practices goes before optimization. When you start an experimentation team, you used to discuss what is the best hyperparameter, what is the ultimate way to measure blah, 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 blah. And you enter in a rabbit hole where you don't have any real answer to the questions that the company has. So first, you need to ensure that marketing team is working with the best practices. Most of the time, those best practices comes from vendors. So you use those best practices, and after you ensure that you have let's say, the implementation discipline to have those best practices on place, then you start to question those best practices. But first, you need to have implementation discipline, because if not, when you have a new answer to a question given an experiment, you are not going to have the capacity to implement that answer too. So first is implementation discipline of best practices from vendors, and then questionize those. Sometimes even is to prove together with the vendor that best practice makes sense for you. Because sometimes that came from meta-analysis from companies that are not in your same area or state of maturity and so on. So first best practices, then optimization.
Thanks, Joshua. Thanks, Anna, for that insightful question. I know you have typed out your question in the chat. If you want to speak it, that's fine with me as well. You can go ahead, or else I can read it for you.
Hi, hello everybody. Sorry, actually I'm in a car. That's why I think the voice would not be clear. So that's why I typed it out. So, but I'm not sure if I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Okay, all right. So I have two questions. The first question is like, I often see that there are different types of experiments. Some are pretty standard, like we have pre-post control group, and we have these kind of standardizations in experiments which we see. And more often than not, we already have a pattern in which we can select which experiment to do for a certain situation. But many times I see that these rules are not followed, and people just go out of their intuition to select an experiment which they feel will suit a situation. So what's the best way, like we can select the right format of experimentation for a situation? And the follow-up question is that it's always bothered me that many times when we have experiments taking place, we go after self-proclaimed answers or self-proclaimed data, which people usually give to what their opinions are. But we often overlook that they have internal biases of their own. So how do we kind of counter in the way we collect the data or in the way we like run the experiment, so as to like find the real truth from an analysis and kind of bypass that bias which we see?
Yeah, great question, Vineet. But we may require another session altogether to do that. But we'll try our best to give you a comprehensive answer. So, Ishan, why don't you go first?
So, Vineet, it's exactly as noted by Venkat, it is a very broad question, and I think it's to answer it comprehensively. I think we need to understand the challenges of causal inference and statistics, and only then are you able to tell in a scenario that which technique works here, what changes do you need to make, or what things do you need to take care. So this is a question which cannot be solved top down, that I give you 3-4 methods. It needs to be built bottoms up. You need to have an understanding of why experimentation is needed in the first place, what is confounding bias. And then with that bottoms up understanding of stats and causal inference, you'll be able to sort of pick out in a situation that, okay, this is wrong here, or this might be wrong. So yeah, that is like the most comprehensive answer I can give.
Robson, just to add more flavor to his question, I think he was asking, how do we prevent a scenario where we throw everything at the wall and just see what sticks? I know there are tons of experimentation methods out there, but how do we go about choosing the best one?
Okay. So you said throwing everything and seeing what sticks. This is what you call basically harking. You see the results and then you hypothesize. So the thing is, Ishan made a great point. Understand the question you want to answer. Understand for what subset of people you need this answer. Get the whole sense of where you want to arrive, and then choose a method and stick to it. By method, I say, hey, are you going to use frequentist or Bayesian inference? No, I'm going to use frequentist, and then, okay, results are not significant. Then let me try Bayesian. No, it's not like this. Like I have a really small sample. I can't achieve the power that I calculated in my traditional power calculation. So I'm going to use Bayesian statistics for this and that. Okay, that's the way you would follow. And you said, well, people come with results. How can we understand the biases? First of all, even if you achieve ground truth, you experimented and it's perfect, you still have the point of internal versus external validity. What somebody experiments for Meta's audience is not necessarily go to apply for I don't know, Google's audience. So have that in mind. Even if the experiment is perfectly implemented, the context are differences, the populations are differences, so on.
Yeah. So Joshua, I will further enhance Vineet's question. And of course, Ron Kohavi talks about this particular acronym called HIPPO, highest paid person's opinion, right? Maybe you are a HIPPO. I'm not telling that in a derogatory way, just because you have so much experience. Do you think a HIPPO can, solve this problem in the sense that he or she can tell that, okay, you don't have to try all these experiments, just go with this particular method because I have seen it succeed, or I have seen it work. It's my experience. What is your opinion on the acronym HIPPO? Do you think people should listen to the HIPPO, or how it should be?
It depends. If you want to pay your salary, if you want your salary being paid at the end of the month, it's better I am sure that you are going to follow the recommendation. But I mean, when you have this kind of attitudes within your company, most of the time, if because your department is not proving value to those people who takes the final decision. So in this situation, my recommendation should be to prove value to those stakeholders. So and I am sure that you can. I mean, you can manage, you can negotiate. Like, okay, we are going to follow that. But what about if in a minor, in a short population, we try an alternative hypothesis, and let's see. And I'm going to provide you the resource just for you, just to see how we can escalate that given your experience. I mean, at the end, if you are in any position of leadership, it doesn't matter if it's experimentation or another, you need to negotiate with your stakeholders. So you need to see how you can provide value to them. If you are going to start to fight, you are going to lose. Because experimentations departments are not the biggest one in any company. So you need to start to negotiate and start to prove value to those. The next time, if you prove value, they are going to ask, hey, I have that hypothesis, but what is the best way to escalate that? And they are going to come to you to use you as an advisor instead of someone that is going to prove that you are right. So that should be the success.
Yeah, insightful answer, Joshua. So we hope, we addressed your question, but yeah, as I said, it may require another session. Maybe we'll invite Joshua, Ishan, and Robson, for another session and discuss on it. But for the want of time, I think we have given you a very succinct answer. So yeah, moving
Yes,
on.
it's a very good answer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Vineet. Any other questions?
So this is Smriti. I have a question. So I'm very new to this experimentation field, right? So the question to all the panelists here, where one should begin if they are very new, right? And also, are there any golden principles or rules that needs to be followed when we carry out experiments? So question.
Great question, Smriti. Maybe, if this is the last question, this sums up the whole session beautifully. But yeah, again, we can start with Robson here. Yeah.
Okay. Since you're starting now, understand that experimentation is basically testing hypotheses. Don't get, how can I say, afraid of the terminologies that people use. It's just like, well, we have this question, and there's this tool to help me answer this question. And testing hypotheses is an area called statistical inference that you can study. You can start from there, like getting a sense of what is the statistical distribution, how do you check whether the means of two distributions are similar statistically or not, what is a p-value, what is a confidence interval, and everything is going to depart from there, and it's going to be a sophistication of this. Like instead of comparing means, you can run a regression, and this regression is going to compare means automatically for you. It's going to produce a p-value, and things are going from there. So I would start from there.
Robson, just augmenting, Smriti's question, if you can suggest one person to follow and one book to, read, that will be great. Of course, I know you're coming up with your own book, but I know still it's not up, so I can't recommend. Yeah, but
of course. Like one person to look for is like that two people. One doesn't post much in
okay.
On LinkedIn, and so I'm going to write here. One is from Ron Kohavi, and the other is, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to write it. Yes, this.
Okay, Georgie
Uh,
Georgiev. Okay. Yeah, I was about to recommend his
Yeah,
name.
Ron. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, the Ron Koolhaven's book is really good. I would recommend it. It covers even if you are a beginner, like it goes from beginning to end. And this one is from the second guy that I mentioned. Well, it's a bit blurred, but you
Georgie
get
Georgiev.
the
Yeah,
the sense.
statistical
Yes,
methods. Yeah.
yeah, this one. Well, it insists on making it blurry. But I just started reading this one, so I can't really recommend. But the Ron Koolhaven's one for sure.
Yeah, great suggestions, Robson. Yeah, Joshua.
Now I feel the complexity of being the last one. But
You are running short of options. Yeah.
yeah, I will recommend, of course, Ron. I will recommend Ron books, but I will recommend this one, the Effect book, that is about research, design, and causality. And the good news is, second edition it was released last week, and the book, the ebook is for free, so you can find it in the in that link. Other, I think that I don't know if you know SPIRO. SPIRO is an experimentation agency. Is I think for practitioners they have the best blog to start. So instead of giving like 10 different advices here, I'm going to put the SPIRO the SPIRO web here, because I think that they do the best content for beginners. And you can follow, they have even playbooks about how to start to do experimentations. And if you don't know how to start, and you just want to get, let's say, templates and things like that, I'm going to recommend this school of experimentation that is very, very good, CXL. In CXL, you have a lot of courses for beginners. They provide templates, they provide master classes, and so on. So you can start from there.
Yeah, great suggestions, Joshua. And I would also recommend, the blogs of Netflix, the engineering blogs of Netflix and Airbnb. They also publish a lot. And of course, Google is always there. They keep publishing a tons of it. So you can go through, any of their blogs. And you also have Meta. You also have Twitter. Now it's X. I know Joshua wouldn't recommend, but I would recommend.
But this is, I feel that those are for tier one experimentation. I mean, Netflix, for example, is best in class.
Advanced.
So very advanced.
Ishan, what are your recommendations?
I would like to, I'm sorry, I just had a power cut, so I'm not visually available. But I would like to recommend the Book of Why for a broader understanding of cause and effect. I think experimentation is based on that. It is not something that will give you the starting knowledge and stuff. But if you want to get the broader view of what cause and effect is about, what is the complexity and why we essentially experiment, the Book of Why is an excellent book, I would suggest. So yeah.
Yeah, great suggestion again, Ishan. Any final questions? We have 2 minutes of time left. And I think we can entertain one more question, or we can wrap it up. Okay, I think there are no more questions. And if there are questions, I would highly urge you all to, follow these gentlemen out there, Joshua, Ishan, and Robson on LinkedIn. And you can definitely, post questions to them. And they are such experts in the field. They will be, definitely willing to answer any of your questions. Joshua, Ishan, and Robson, it was a pleasure having you today. Thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you.